what I'm really curious now about is, can you paint us a before and after picture in terms of how did you feel when you had anxiety, and how has it impacted your life? And how do you feel now that you're in a much better place? And how does your life look like now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll tell a little story related to my yoga teacher journey. So I started teaching about a decade ago, and I would have so much anxiety. I went through what I think a lot of yoga teachers might go through. I would spend hours planning my class. You know, my class would be 1 hour, and I might spend 4 or 5 hours planning this one class. And if you're a yoga teacher out there, you're listening, I think you can probably relate. I've talked to other people like, oh yeah, yeah, right. So I knew that was like, okay, this is something new, and I'm really investing my time, and that was part of it. But then what started to happen is that I would become so fearful, really, and anxious, and the story would start in my head that 2 hours before I was supposed to teach the class, I would reach out to the studio owner and say, I can't teach the class. Wow. So I was having so much anxiety about XYZ, getting in front of other people, being a leader, worried about what other people were thinking about me, which was really what I was thinking about myself. So I was worrying that others were going to be judging me. Really, I was judging myself. But it was crippling me so much. It was affecting my work. It was affecting this part of my life, yoga, that had been so meaningful to me that I wanted to then pass on to other people. But it was stopping that. So that was a good year that was happening. And over time, with compassion, with curiosity, I just would start to like talk to that part of myself, and I would show up and I would teach the yoga class. And now over time, like that doesn't happen at all. I show up and I teach. You know, I still get sometimes nervous before I'm teaching or before a workshop, or even like getting on this conversation with you. I can feel that nervousness, but it's different than an anxiety and a crippling and something that's really holding me back. You know, I think the difference between, you know, excitement and maybe nervousness can be the breath and can be grounding down. And with anxiety, it's energy moving upward. And so really wanting to ground down. So I was able to, over time, be really compassionate towards myself, show up, teach the class, and then make sure that I acknowledged towards that anxious part of myself that, hey, we did it. Okay, here's what went well, here's what didn't go well, and we'll do it again. So I think over time, I was just able to with that compassion, with that curiosity, was able to do that. As far as, you know, I was on the antidepressants, and I knew that I wanted to wean off antidepressants. I knew I needed to build up a little bit of resiliency in order to do that. So I started these daily practices. I started getting on my cushion a lot more. And it wasn't for long periods of time. It was maybe for 1 minute, maybe for 5 minutes. I started putting a lot of oil on my body, which in Ayurveda is abhyanga. It's a self-massage. And there's lots of great benefits for putting oil on your body. And it helped to calm my nervous system. So I just slowly started taking these steps. And I really slowly weaned off the pharmaceuticals, but I didn't wean off of it without bringing other things in. So maybe, you know, I started having like a cup of tea at night before going to bed, and then putting oil in my body. So I was bringing in these self-care practices as I was starting to wean off this medication. And I think the balance of those two was really helpful. Like it wouldn't make sense for anyone who's out there listening and they may want to wean off any medication. Of course, you want to consult your doctor first. But just from my standpoint, I think bringing something else in to nourish yourself is the way to do that. And so now, that was kind of the before, and then my process in getting through. And even now, I mean, my anxiety is still there, but I have such a different relationship with it, and I'm able to listen to it in a different way, where before I might have just pushed it aside and kept on going. And now I can see like, oh, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, I might reach out to somebody for support, maybe reach out to a friend and say, hey, I'm feeling really anxious about this. Can I talk it through with you? I might say, okay, I really need to make sure I'm in bed by 10 o'clock tonight so I get a good night's sleep. Or I really need to make sure I put oil in my body today. So I think for years, I pushed it away because it was uncomfortable and I wanted to ignore it. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. But then over time, I could see it was really taxing my system. And it's through, again, that curiosity and that compassion that I've been able to treat the anxiety like a friend and say, come on in. Okay, let's do an oil massage. Let's have some tea. Let's talk to somebody. Let's get this out. Or journaling, like let's just get out what the anxiousness is about. So it's still there, but I have so many more grounded modalities and systems in place to help support me with it.
I saw a really cool graphic the other day that showed the vortex of healing versus the vortex of disease. So if you imagine a vortex of disease on one side, which is kind of like a swirly thing, and you're kind of in this spiral of disease. And then on the other side, on the right side, there's the vortex of healing. And it looks very similar. It is also still like a swirly thing, but in between, so it means, like what you said, whatever we have got going on might still be going on, but we have a completely different relationship to it. And what is in between those two vortexes is like this period of time where we build what we call ojas in Ayurveda. So there's this, so there's this vortex of disease. And then the way out of it is actually we build ojas, we build strength, immunity, internal vigor, whether that is physically and mentally, or spiritually. And we just have to walk through this, what would you call it, this gap or this corridor, let's put it this way. We have to walk through this corridor of learning how to take care of ourselves well. And then we end up on the other side where the light is with the vortex of healing. Mm-hmm. And things are still going to go on, but there's light there instead of darkness.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really great visual. And because it doesn't, I think it doesn't necessarily go away. Like that's what you're talking about with this disease, but we have to go through it, right? And we can try to go around it for a long time, but we need to go through it. And we don't need to do, it is an inside job to go through it, but we don't have to do it alone. We can do it in support. We can, I know both the courses that you and I offer, we work in groups because we see the effect of a group dynamic. So we can have that support. We can be curious. We can have that compassion towards ourselves. So we're really holding ourselves close as we work through towards healing. So that, I love that image. I think that's really, really beautiful. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. And again,